climate change is changing the food on our plate. It is putting pressure on food systems and depriving children of essential nutrition. So how can innovation and capital mobilization close this gap? Experts have been deliberating over this at the Ecosperity Week 2025 that is underway in Singapore. And we now cross over to Roland Lim, who's joining us live from the event venue. Roland.
Thanks, Yasmin. Despite Asia's rapid development, millions of children still go to bed malnourished, and climate change is making that challenge even harder to solve. Now, my colleague, Ilaki Selvaraj, spoke with Roland Kupka. He is Regional Nutrition Advisor at UNICEF to understand the scale of the nutrition crisis and solutions tailored to the region.
I see some real change that is happening when it comes to nutrition in my area. That is, I see clear evidence that the foundational nature of nutrition for child development and for human capital development is becoming clear. I'm also sensing that there is a greater awareness that there are scalable models that are available and that could be interesting for philanthropists. And I also see possibilities for greater alignment among funding and financing that is becoming available. And I believe as UNICEF we have been able to develop some mechanisms that can actually help those who are interested in addressing child malnutrition to bring these ideas and these funding sources together to achieve impact for children.
You know, speaking of malnutrition, it is alarmingly high here in Asia. So how do we close the gap?
Yeah, no, that's perhaps surprising to some that there is a large unfinished agenda of malnutrition in the region. What we're seeing is that 19 million children are chronically undernourished. This form of undernourishment stunts their bodies and their minds. We also see that deficiencies in vitamins and minerals are still very common. And at the same time, we see that more and more children live with overweight and obesity. So I think really what we need to make sure is that children have access to the right diets, the right services, and to the right practices, and that we support governments to put in place the right policies and programs to address these forms of malnutrition.
You might have heard this question again and again, but I'm going to ask you again. What's stopping all this from reaching the children?
Yeah, I think we need to strengthen one area in particular, which is around the financing of the programs. What we have not seen is to have mechanisms that can help us assess what are the financing needs, how do we piece these needs together, how do we also incentivize transitions at government levels away from global resources to domestic funding, and also how do we incentivize the production of certain nutritious foods, nutrient supplements in settings where they're most needed. And I feel that the discussions here at PASS can help us make real progress and also to assist that with some tools that we have put together on the UNICEF side to support those efforts.
You know, yourself and even other experts say that finance or money is not the only challenge. How has maybe climate change intensified this issue of malnutrition here in Asia, especially in young children, pregnant women?
It's a very important question, and climate change is indeed making it harder for children to get the nutrition they need. Climate change is putting pressure on health systems. It is increasing the prevalence of infections, which drain children's bodies of vital nutrients. Also, climate change is making it harder to access health as well as nutrition services. At the same time, climate change is impairing food systems. So we see decreases in the quality of food, in the quantity of food. And all of that makes it very clear that it's hard to talk about climate action without putting children, as well as children's nutrition, at the center of those efforts.
And I think UNICEF has been doing so much, as much as possible, in terms of uplifting and facing these challenges in that sense. What successful approaches or innovations do you think are emerging in Asia?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think I want to bring this back to this financing side, that we've been able to launch a financing mechanism which is called the Child Nutrition Fund, which again allows us to bring together different financing needs, different donors, as well as our ability to support governments who require donor funding, as well as to offer parallel funding for governments that have resources, and to also work on the production of local foods. So we feel that has real promise to address malnutrition in this region as well as in other regions.
You know, the theme for PAS is priming Asia for good, and we're talking about good collaboration, partnerships amongst various entities. Perhaps you could let us know what kind of collaboration is truly needed across sectors to really tackle nutrition, tackle climate together.
Yeah, I think at the core needs to be government action. I think it's the duty of governments to watch out for the rights of their citizens, to put in place the policies and the programs, but governments cannot do it alone. And that's where I feel the philanthropists come in. They have the freedom, the speed, the agility to try out new things, new models that can then be taken over by governments later. So it's very clear that we need contributions from both the private as well as the public sector.
I mean, speaking of models, right, philanthropy here in Asia is considered to be different from the West. How do you see the philanthropy here in Asia kind of priming or supporting this kind of communities?
Yeah, I think what is quite apparent in this part of the world is how closely linked the philanthropic actions are with the values of the companies, of the families, and how it almost becomes a family affair. And I think it's just very important to see what is the alignment between those who run the philanthropies as well as the needs. And I think if there's then good overlap, then real magic can happen.
I've got one last question. On a personal note, Roland, what gives you hope that Asia can really lead the way in building more climate resilient and nutrition secure place?
I think what this region can really do is avoid a lot of mistakes that were made in other parts of the country, be it in North America, in Western Europe, that we can draw on those lessons. We can combine it with the quest for innovation that this region has, and to kind of leapfrog this whole area, and I think really lead the way overall in the whole world when it comes to climate action as well as areas such as child nutrition.